Okay, so I saw this on Twitter. It says name an album that basically counts as going to therapy, and a couple came to mind actually. So first one that came to mind for me is Fionapple's When the Pun album, and I feel like this album has actually grown on me from whenever I first heard it. I wasn't too fond of it when I first heard it, to be honest with you, but the more I listen to it, the more that it's grown on me, and this is kind of a comfort album for me in a way, just because anytime that I'm just like mad or really upset typically is when I listen to this album. And even though I'm not necessarily able to relate to everything that she's talking about on this album, it just feels so cathartic to listen to it. It just feels like a release and everything. And that's the thing that I've always said about Fiona Apple. Even if you can't relate to what she's going through, you just feel her pain, and the way that she's able to articulate her experiences, I think, just makes her so special, and her strengths as a songwriter. There's so many good songs in this album. Paper Bag is obviously amazing. And then you had like Fast As You Can, A Mistake, I Know is wow. I mean, just what a closer that this album is. But yeah, this album has no skips for me, but just like every single time I listen to this album and I'm just not in a great place, I always come out of it feeling better. And I think that this is just a really good album overall, so I'd recommend listening to it if you haven't already. I'm always trying to push the Fiona Apple agenda, and so if you haven't listened to an album by her, I'd recommend you start here and then you just go chronologically. And yeah, I think there's a lot to offer here just from a soundscape perspective. It just sounds so like New York in the best way, just sonically and everything. She's a great piano player, great songwriter. I think the vocals work for these tracks a lot. So yeah, this album definitely, has helped a lot. And another Fiona Apple album that I would say is the Fetch the Bolt Cutters album. I mean, I could definitely throw Either Wheel in here, Extraordinary Machine, which is most of her discography. The first album I don't really go for it, but my 24th birthday is rapidly approaching. It'll be October 25th, and I'm very excited for that. I'm excited for my birthday every year, Scorpio season, but I think I'm going to be listening to this album a lot just because I feel like it's just going to give me, some more perspective and just kind of center me. And yeah, I think that that's what this album is really going to do, and I think it's a great album. The opening track, I Want You to Love Me, is just so cool, just from a piano soundscape and lyrics. Shamika was just about a girl at school that like wasn't really kind to her, but basically said she had potential, and they later met up and did a song together. You had Relay, which was a really interesting song, kind of just about power dynamics, ladies exploring her relationship with women and how men kind of affect that and trying to push past that ultimately, which I think is interesting. Rack of His, I think it's just an excellent song on this. Newspaper was incredible. There's so many good songs in this album. I think it's very cohesive yet again. And yeah, Fiona Apple's music again is just very grounding. It's very centering, and there's just so much lyrically that you can take away from it, and I just feel like every time I listen to it, it just puts a lot into perspective, and I just really enjoy what she does on that level. So Fiona Apple is definitely one of my favorite artists, and those two albums I would say were important for me to mention. Next up, I got Butterfly by Mariah Carey. If you know one thing about me, I am a huge Mariah Carey fan, and this is like my favorite album of all time. And yeah, I mean, this was just really an artistic beat for her when we're talking about the vocal arrangements on here, when we're talking about the songwriting and her lyricism, talking about the divorce with Tommy and life and everything that she was going through at this point. So very monumental album for her, and especially this era, she was able to wear what she wanted, make the music that she wanted to. So if you're a fan, you kind of know how much this album means to her, and its significance in the discography. And I just think it's great. You had Honey, which was a great opener. Butterfly is one of my favorite all-time Mariah Carey songs. She's just kind of talking about Tommy Mattel in that situation, and how that song is basically about what she wished that he would have said to her in that entire situation. My All was about Derek Jeter, great song. The Roof is a fan favorite, and I really like the sample of the Mobb Deep Shut Ones Part 2, I believe. 4th of July was incredible. Breakdown. I mean, I'm basically saying the whole album, but I mean, Baby Doll, Outside was certainly an incredible moment, just about being biracial and how difficult it was for her, especially at that time and everything. And as a biracial person myself, I can definitely relate to that song, and you can tell that there was just something that was very cathartic about her doing that song, in particular just how powerful her vocals are. And nobody ever talks about the drums in the song, so I always do, but just the drums and the instrumentation, and it's just a very powerful record vocally. I love the production and stuff like that. So yeah, there's just a whole lot lyrically with what she was going through in her life with this album, and it's just a masterpiece. It truly is. So Butterfly will always have a special place in my heart. Absolutely adore this album. Janet Jackson, The Velvet Rope, like I said, she's still on timeout because the Kamala comments, if you know, you know, and everything. So I will say that. But I mean, this is a great album. You know, Go Deep is the first song that comes to mind for me randomly. And I really enjoyed that one. You had Got Till It's Gone, which was a really, really cool record on this album. You is so underrated. Nobody ever talks about that song, but it's always been one of my favorites on the song. Special, I think, was really kind of just summing up what this album is perfectly. And basically, she just had to dig up her past and talk about it because it was affecting her personally. And so to just make an album kind of talking about that was, you know, important. Free Zone was kind of just about like the LGBT community. Same thing with like Together Again, about her friends that unfortunately passed from AIDS and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that there was just so much on here just about childhood and her personal life and everything that she's been through, and she was able to present that beautifully. Production on here is absolutely insane. Really strong songwriting, and I like the vocal arrangements on here a lot. So yeah, I remember the first time I heard this album, absolutely blew my mind. It really did. And what a powerful experience. If you've never heard Janet before, do not start off with this album. It's a very long album. Start off with Control and work your way up, trust me. And then when you get to this one, you will probably be amazed just like I was. But really great record. Last one that I saw someone bring up that I thought was interesting, Beyonce's Lemonade album. I mean, this was definitely a cultural moment for the year that it came out, 2016 and everything, kind of just talking about, you know, Jay-Z's infidelity and how she dealt with that and everything, and how she was ultimately able to continue to be with him and just everything in that situation. And I think that the way that she went about it was, you know, excellent. She takes you through the whole arc of the story, and she gets more personal on this album, which she typically doesn't do. So I think that that's why this album was very monumental in her career, just like kind of the story behind it all, especially on stuff like Pray You Catch Me, the first song in that album, saying I can taste the dishonesty, it's all over your breath, you know, kind of starting off there. We had Sorry, which is one of my favorite records on the album. Don't Hurt Yourself was a rock song featuring Jack White. Daddy Lessons is probably my favorite song on this album. Sandcastles doesn't get enough love, you know, but that's always been one of my favorites on this album, and I was shocked that other people didn't really go for it. You have Freedom with Kendrick Lamar, you had All Night, which should have closed the album. I just don't think that formation works as a closer. But yeah, I just think that, you know, culturally, the significance that this album has cannot be understated. You know, the visuals for this album, even if you buy this album on vinyl, just the packaging that it comes in, just super cool. Just, you know, what a moment. And yeah, there was so much attention and thought put behind this album, as basically all Beyonce albums do. Beyonce is such a great artist, so Lemonade is just a great album, and what she was able to do cannot be, you know, signified enough. So, you know, we love it. And so yeah, I kind of try to think about comfort albums for me at times, and also just albums where I felt like it was probably therapeutic for the artist to make, and there was just a lot of, you know, catharsis and stuff like that, and just them digging deep and stuff. So let me know what you guys think on my picks down below, and we can kind of continue that conversation overall, and I would definitely love to know what your picks are.